thing. But do you both have paper and pencil today?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Perfect. So contour drawing, do either of you have experience with contour drawing or know much about it?
Not a bit.
No.
That's actually more fun. I think it's more fun when you don't know anything about it. I think it's a concept. It's very, very basic, but it's something that even when I was in art college that I practiced and developed. So it's one of those things that you can come back to improve skills all the time. I'll be honest, I don't draw regularly as much as I paint. So sometimes if I feel my drawing skills are a little rusty or feel like my hands aren't moving how I want them to, I come back to this because it helps loosen me up. It helps get me to look at something, observe something. And the great part about it is we don't have to worry about shading. All I have today, I just have a little sketchbook, super basic paper, and I just have a couple like number 2 basic pencils and an eraser. And in fact, you probably don't even need your eraser today. So pencils and paper. And sometimes contour drawings are fun to do in markers or colored pencils or other materials too, just to give yourself a little challenge. Hey, Susan.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning, welcome. Perfect timing. We're just getting started with some paper and a pencil. That's it. And I'm actually going to do something a little different. Instead of turning my camera on right away, we're going to warm up together, but I'm not going to show you what mine looks like. We're just going to do this together to warm ourselves up. And I want you to get into the mindset that the final product doesn't matter. What it looks like doesn't matter at all. It's going to look ridiculous. Mine is too. Okay, mine is too. I'll show you mine at the end. We are going to do something called blind contour drawing. So what you need to do, we're going to just use our hands because they're easy and I think it's a great thing to draw because they're attached to us. So if you're right-handed like me, draw your left hand. If you're left-handed, draw your right hand. Yeah.
Can you give me the definition of what is contour drawing?
Yeah, I'm getting to that.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
No, you're totally fine. You're totally fine. I'm not going to leave you hanging, I promise. So let's get right into that. A contour, I have a banana here. A contour drawing is simply an outline, okay? Nothing shaded, nothing in super detail. It's just outlines, just line work. And so when we look at something, draw the outside lines, we can begin to understand it more. So I'm going to show you how to do this. Even if that doesn't quite make sense yet, I'll show you how. So what we're going to do, you grab your pencil, have your paper, and try to, if at all possible, position yourself in a way where you can't really see your paper really well, or try to purposefully look away from it. Like I can kind of see mine out of the corner of my eye a little bit, but I'm trying to be mindful and not looking at it. I'm respecting that. So don't look at your paper. What you're going to do is you're just going to hold up your hand and just put it in, a loose pose. I usually like to look at the inside of my hand because I think it's more interesting than the outside with all the wrinkles we have and all the line work. So you're just going to hold up your hand. Also, what we might want to do is if you have your mic on, maybe mute it just during the instruction part and then pop in with a question. There we go. That way there's no feed. So what you're going to do is you're just going to hold up your hand and you're going to, with your eyes, I want you to trace the outline of your hand. Just kind of go up and down, follow your fingers just with your eyes right now. Just kind of note the shape, the angle. You're just looking right now. Just spend some time looking. Hi, welcome. If you just joined us, we're just looking at our hand right now. We're observing our hands and we are talking about contour drawing. And we're talking about blind contour drawing, which is a style of drawing where you don't look at your paper when you draw. You only look at what you're drawing. it will look ridiculous. So fine. What I told everyone was the final outcome is not important here. It's the process that is important. This is a helpful exercise to train your hand-eye coordination, which is key in learning how to draw. So it's silly, but it's effective. So what you'll do, all we're doing right now is just kind of practicing, tracing our fingers up and down, going around all 5 of our fingers, looking around the curve of our palm, just tracing it with our eyes for a minute, just practicing kind of what that feels like. Looking at something with your eyes, breaking down the shapes you see, the lines you see. The nice thing about contour drawing is there's no shading at all, only lines, okay? So we're only breaking it down into lines. So what we're gonna do, go ahead and grab your pencil, and we are going to just, there's no wrong way to do this. You cannot even mess this up if you tried, okay? So all you're going to be doing is you're going to this time start tracing your hand with your eyes just like you did before, but this time move your pencil on your paper as you trace with your eyes, okay? So you're trying to make some connections. It's going to look silly. That's okay. I'm doing it too, and then we'll all kind of show them. Okay, so I'm just kind of starting with my I start right along here usually and just kind of trace it, follow my fingers, go around the curves, and I'm just drawing the outside lines, okay? And I'm not looking at my paper at all. I can lift up my pencil and move it if I need to. I'll usually try to trace some of the curves of like my fingernail, the little curves in my thumb. You start to notice how intricate your hand actually really is when you stare at it like this. And you can do this exercise with absolutely any object, anything. I tend to just practice with hands because I think it's easy because they're attached to us and we always have them to come back to. But then two, when we practice drawing hands, we learn a lot. There's a lot of shapes, a lot of lines. If you can draw a hand, you can draw anything. So if you feel like you've lost your spot, don't worry, just pick your pencil up and keep drawing, just keep tracing with your eyes. It's okay if this is slower for you or if you tend to go faster. Everybody draws at a different pace. If you don't feel like you've got the full hand in there, that's okay too. You could go back and add lines if you want. Faces are really fun to do too if you have a mirror. Doing a blind contour drawing with your own face is absolutely hysterical. Or if you get on a video chat with a friend and you draw each other's faces, they're hysterical. My friend and I, we'd just do this and then we'd paint them and it's just hysterical. So I'm going to show you my hand. So there's my blind contour hand. Now sometimes it's hard to see. Oh yeah, nice. That was a nice see. Yeah. Yes. That's great. They're looking like, they look like hands, right? You can see components of hands. Do they look ridiculous and silly? Yes, of course they do. Perfect. Perfect. I guarantee you, every morning when you wake up, spend 5 minutes and do this. Every morning. Same, draw your hand every morning. Could be a different pose, but if you go back, like spend the next month doing this, and if you look back over the next 30 days, you will see so much improvement. It's crazy. In fact, when I do a lot of these, when I'm teaching them to my high schoolers, I'll get pretty good at them because I'm doing them regularly and they're just like, what? Why does that look like a hand and you weren't even looking at your paper? How do you do that? And I'm like, it just happens when you do it repetitively. So it's like, I haven't done this in a while, so mine looks kind of extra ridiculous, but if I did this over and over and over again, you get really good at it. So that's a blind contour. You can do a semi-blind contour as well, where you're doing like 80% looking at your hand, 20% like checking your paper. That's kind of a fun thing to do. And then you can also do a continuous contour. So we're gonna try a continuous. And I'll go ahead and turn on my camera now so you can see me draw as well. I just, the blind one, sometimes I think it's fun to just try on your own before you see anything. Okay. And then I have some Apple references for us too for later. So now that I've got this going, okay. You can mix these two. You can do a blind and continuous together. You can do just a blind, just a continuous. But a continuous contour drawing, you don't pick up your pencil ever. You leave it on the paper the entire time. But this time I'll let you look at your paper. You can look at your paper this time. Okay, so what we'll do is I'll just kind of, and if you want to watch for a minute before you start, you can, but I'll just kind of pose my hand so you can see it a little bit and see my paper. So again, I just pick a starting point. I usually keep these pretty loose and flowy and fun. I don't worry about drawing super, super tight or super sketchy at this point. With a continuous contour, if you make a mistake, you just go back over top of it. If you, let's say, you're going up the side of the hand and you're like, oh, I need to put this wrinkle in here. You would come back, draw the wrinkle, and then go back up. So you just draw over top of your existing lines, never lifting up your pencil. It's very challenging, even for me to do this. So I just kind of start on the side. And again, I just really am focusing. There's some of the wrinkles in my thumb. I'm mostly looking at my hand, not my paper, but I can do some little checks if I want to. So I just draw the wrinkles, keep going. I almost let them get kind of loopy. A lot of well-known artists, Picasso, Matisse, lots of artists would kind of explore drawing and making art through contours as well. But again, if you make a mistake, you just go right over top of it. Like I noticed this finger could actually be a little higher. Just draw it higher. Don't even worry about the fact that I made a mistake. Because again, the product does not matter here. That is not what is important. Oops, I just lifted my pencil a little bit. What's important, went off my page a little bit, that's okay. What's important is that you're doing the tracing, you're following it with your eyes, and you're not lifting up your pencil, even if you make a mistake. Bring this around. And again, this is one of those things that I feel like the more I do them, the better they start getting. And draw the wrinkles in your wrist. Yeah, so something like that. Okay, super simple, super loose, all except for I did mess up here when I went off the edge. So ignore that. But other than that, one continuous line. Now you can do the same thing where you take like an object, like a banana, same kind of thing, draw in one continuous line. It's just a great way to practice those contours. Right. So how are you guys feeling about blind and continuous? Does it feel like something you feel comfortable practicing? Or do you feel like it still feels a little strange? Does anyone feel like sharing? It's okay if you don't want to.
It feels a little strange.
Feels a little strange. That's okay. It's okay. I will tell you, when I do this with my high schoolers, they feel that way too. So my plan is to do kind of several of these contour drawing classes so we get more comfortable and we practice together. Because once you have some of the basic information and you understand, we can come back together and I could say, you know, maybe we have a homework assignment, everybody grab a couple pieces of fruit, right? And we could set some fruit up and we can practice drawing contours together and learn more about it together. So keep in mind, this is sort of an introduction to it. If it feels funny, that's okay. We're going to transition into what's called a cross contour now. Now, this may help you understand kind of depth and space a little bit more in drawing in relation to the outlines. So I do have a couple objects. I have a light bulb, I have a banana, and then I did print off some apples. So I ran out of actual apples. So just so we can kind of look at actual objects. So when we look at something like this, okay, this is a printed flat two-dimensional picture of a 3D object, a form, an apple. This is three-dimensional. So if I was to do just a contour, regular old contour drawing, we can do this together. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we can see this. So, and maybe hands are a little intimidating. So we'll start simple. An apple is pretty simple. Okay, we're kind of looking at a circle with kind of another little circle inside. And then, you know, kind of like an elongated cylinder for our stem. Okay, so to draw this, just kind of loosely draw yourself a circle or a loose circle. Doesn't have to be perfect. If you don't like a little edge, you can fix it, soften those edges if you need to. You don't always have to get that shape perfect that first try. That comes, the more you draw, the better you'll get at laying down your lines. Okay, so right now we just have a circle. So we know that the stem, because of the perspective of this apple, we can see some of the top of it, okay? We can kind of overlook and see some of the top. Whereas if our eye level shifted down, we'd only see the side and maybe the bottom of the apple, but not the top. Okay, so that's important to pay attention, or if you have a physical object, to pay attention to the angle. Which way are you looking at it? Okay, because that's going to determine the way you draw the shapes and the lines, same as when you're posing your hand and doing a blind contour. So I know the stem is going to start about down here. Right? It's not going to start at the very, very top. It's going to start about down here. Now, if this is helpful for you, you can go ahead and just erase a little bit of the top of the apple so that stem can shoot out, or you can erase after you draw the line. It's really up to you. Then I can just bring this little stem coming out. I do see a little bit of the tip of this. So I can just kind of draw that in there. And the stem's not perfect. The edges are a little, you know, it gets a little skinnier as it goes in. It's maybe too skinny. Okay, so again, feel free to manipulate your shape if you need to in your lines. You don't have to get it perfect the first try. Take some time with it, observe what you're looking at. That's okay to do. Or if you prefer to be kind of looser and sketchier and just kind of go with the flow of things, that's fine too. You know, you'll embrace your style the way you like to draw the more you practice. Okay, so now I've got a little stem. I can close this guy up. And then now I'm going to just kind of draw in some lines just to illustrate this kind of shape. So contour would be the outside edges. Okay, so we've got that. We've got the outside edges of this, but then it's also like prominent information or details or shifts in color or shadow could also be included in contour, even though we're not shading. So I could just kind of draw this back up here. I'm just illustrating it with lines, but it is representative of shifts in color. Okay, so another thing I could do is I've got a highlight here. I could block this highlight in if I wanted to. I could also draw some of these kind of major lines if I wanted to. I'll have to do all of them. I could even like illustrate them. I'll show you this way, in fact, instead of a line. I could illustrate this as a shape. So I'm just gonna trace it on the actual apple so you can see that. But rather than drawing individual lines, I could just do a color shift as a shape too, if you wanted to, okay? And then I could do some other shapes back here with some of these thicker lines. Okay, and then I notice they're starting to kind of go around the back, so I could do the same kind of thing, start bringing those around the back if I wanted to. But all of this would just be a basic contour drawing of this apple. Okay, so the next thing we're going to look at is cross contour. So an apple is basically a sphere. So if you want to draw a circle, you could just do this under your apple if you want. But if you want to take a circle, just try to get it as round as you can. So we want to think about cross contour for an apple. Like when we look at the top of it, we can divide this up into spheres. Or sorry, ellipses is what I meant to say. On the sphere, we can divide it into ellipses. So I can start with like a circle here, and then I can start bringing that around to illustrate the top. Okay, and this would be for a rounded surface. So any rounded surface you look at, you can break down in this way. Again, this is called cross contour, or you could call it contour surface lines. So if you look at a light bulb, okay, which is a cylinder, you could identify the top and start drawing these types of lines going across. And then, so we divide this, we keep going. And how many you put in here is really up to you. How close do you want them together versus how spaced out you want them to be. Like I could, for example, put another line in here if I wanted to. And then you'll start drawing lines. You look at the middle, you could even put a dot where that middle of the ellipse would be. So lines would be coming out from here. And they're kind of bowed out a little bit. Imagine like a beach ball. Or like a globe, okay? And then the lines in the back just kind of fade off. Or a disco ball. You just kind of follow the curve. But the top of a light bulb would be the same idea. In fact, I could turn this into a light bulb, right? If I just bring this side down. This here. A little long for me. And then same kind of idea. I could continue these lines, but they're going to change based on the shape, okay? So if you would take like a cube, for example, zoom in over here. Let's try this with a cube. Again, cross contour. If I start with a basic cube, sometimes starting super simple can be helpful. And then I need 3 lines going back in space that are parallel. And then I'll just close that off with some parallel lines. Okay, so a cube could be anything that's sort of sectioned So I would start on the front by just doing some vertical lines. You just try to get them as straight as you can. You can always grab a ruler if you wanted to, or a straight edge. But usually when I'm sketching, I just go ahead and freehand them in because I think it helps practice with your lines too. And then you'll do the same thing on this side, but you'll follow these lines going back. Okay. Then we can do, just so we don't get too confused, we can do these horizontal lines. It's almost like you're making a checkerboard pattern on it, you know? But these cross contour lines then are connecting my outside contour lines together, thus allowing me to see depth and space a lot easier without any type of shading. So this line I would then connect, I just make sure it's parallel to this top line. So grab it from this where it meets, and then just make sure it's parallel when it goes back. And this is similar to like cross hatching. When you do it, you know, very close together, then it's starting to become cross hatching, which is a way to shade. So this can eventually translate into something shaded. And then of course you do the top the exact same way. Just drawing both those horizontal lines. I guess they're kind of diagonal on the top. You want to follow those, the front and that back line. And then same thing, you're just going to meet where this line meets. Take that and just grab it and pull it back. And then you've got your cross contour cube. Okay, so something like that. You can do the same thing with any form. Okay, you can take a cone. Same idea, you need to think about how the cone is rounded as it goes up. Think of like a party hat shape. Waffle cone. And then I'll bring these lines coming down from the top, kind of shooting out. So sometimes when you practice like these basic forms with your cross contour, then you can see how they translate into objects that you want to draw. It helps you understand space better and depth before you start adding shading to the mix, because of course shading is a whole other set of skills, which, you know, we will have classes on and get toward, but I think it's nice seeing just the outlines of things. So I thought we would try a couple objects together a minute with some cross contour. So I thought we could try the banana. So hopefully if I set it up kind of here, you feel like you can see it okay, but you can also sort of reference my drawing too. Just kind of sharpen my pencil a minute. I always find if you find your pencil when you sketch gets really smudgy on you, try keeping it sharper. I'm very bad at doing this, but actually you do want your pencil point to be fairly sharp most of the time, because when it's dull, you're just sort of smudging on top of the paper versus like getting your graphite like into the teeth of the paper, tooth of the paper. So keeping it really sharp is helpful. Dropping stuff over here. Okay, so let's take a look at this banana. So I'm just going to mostly draw it from kind of this top view so that you all can see this view that I'm drawing it in. Okay, but this will kind of, what we're going to do here is we're going to look at the basic contour shape of the banana, And then we'll look at the different planes of the banana, that we do have these natural little lines in the peel that help us kind of see where all the cross contour lines go. So I'm going to start by just drawing outside kind of around. And it kind of goes down. And if you feel more comfortable being a little bit sketchy as you draw, that is totally fine. And we're not doing blind, we're not doing continuous at this point, so you can draw however you feel comfortable. So this little kind of end piece, I just sort of put some lines in to sort of interpret what's going on there. And just try to break that down in the shape. You know, there's a lot of texture happening there, which is something I would get into with shading and adding value. But for now, I just sort of try to define the shape as best as I can and sort of letting my pencil be a little loose and sort of wiggly around these edges, just because this is very organic and loose, and that's, you know, I don't know what it looks like. It just kind of wraps around like that. Okay. And then same kind of thing. Anytime you see like a shift, you know, there's like a little kind of darkness here, you could draw that. It's kind of funny because I'm looking at the banana in person, but then also looking at it on the screen. And so my two views are constantly changing right now. And I feel like I'm drawing it from both viewpoints a little bit. So I'm trying to draw more from your guys' viewpoint. Just soften that a little bit. Just kind of come down. And again, the beauty of a banana is it doesn't have to be totally perfect because they're all so different. Okay, so basic kind of banana shape. So now, after I've got my basic contour, so again, this is the definition of a contour. I would maybe, to fully kind of finish this up, just a little bit on the end here, and then I would put in those little lines that the banana has. Because the bananas have those different planes when the peel is on. Kind of bring that around. Go. And then we do see, it's a little tricky to see, but there is another bit of that edge right along here. Okay, so this right here, this is the definition of a contour drawing. Just a straight up contour drawing. You can look at it, that's fine. Just to kind of reiterate the differences between what I've taught so far. So this is just straight up contour drawing. I didn't do continuous, I didn't do blind, just straight up contour drawing. Normally how I would do a contour. The blind contour is more about practicing the art of observing and seeing and looking and not staring at your paper so much. So that's what that's for. And the continuous is another method of doing that because it forces you to stare at those lines, go back and draw. So those are more exercises, whereas a traditional contour, you can do quite lovely, just little drawings with these. In fact, sometimes I'll do just like watercolor washes in the background, little contour drawings of like fruits or flowers over top, and then I'll, you know, outline them with a micron or something. So they can make beautiful pieces by themselves too, just to kind of put that out there. So taking a look at cross contour, if you're going to do a cross contour now on this banana, basically what you're looking at is the different planes. So if I'm looking up here to here, I'll try to kind of match my angle best I can. So I notice that it's going up and then it's starting to curve around. I can just sense this by looking at the banana, okay, and observing it and noticing the way it's moving. So I can do that by putting in lines. And the banana is a nice one to practice with because we have these automatic sections that we draw. So then I can just start filling the cross contour lines in each section. Okay, and then this one, just to show you what this would look like, would then start coming down because this starts to come down this angle. So basically, I just kind of follow this curve all the way around. And again, how many lines you put in is truly up to you. You could fill these with more lines if you like what that looks like. Okay, and we just go all the way around. And then as the banana starts to curve, my lines are naturally following that curve. So cross contour, do you always have to put cross contour lines up? No, of course not. But what this can do for you is help you see planes, help you see shifts, help you see depth. So when you start to build up objects with shading, it makes more sense. Okay. Now, if you do want to just kind of start shading something like this too, so a lot of times I will just do a contour drawing so then I can start shading. So if I was going to do something like that, I could even see how I see the shadows. I could even block in where the shadows go. And then this is how you can actually take a contour drawing and turn it into a more realistic drawing by doing this. So when I took drawing classes in college, all of our drawings we started with contour. I didn't necessarily do cross contour, but I started with a basic contour, and then I would start to build up values. So start to push areas really dark. And you can even practice this just with one pencil. The pencil I'm using is a HB. It's equivalent of a number 2 yellow pencil, but you can start playing around with value. You could start adding in a little bit of darker areas. Sometimes I'll shade some of my contour drawings, but not all of it, which can be kind of fun too. So it's just, again, a method of observing and looking and translating what you see onto your paper. So, some of this practicing, it's kind of whatever feels good to you. If you like drawing and then starting to add some shading because that's enjoyable to you, I'd say do that. If you feel like you just want to focus on outlines of things and worry about shading later. Oh yeah, sorry, go ahead, question.
The lines that you did on the banana for the cross contour, why are they there? What are you going to do with them? Because those lines are not on the banana.
So great question. So I know I'm kind of showing you a couple different things at the same time. I do that with demos sometimes. So why are these lines here? So the lines, adding the lines in is a similar practice or exercise as the way blind contour helps you with observing. It helps you see planes. Okay. So if I was to take this light bulb, same idea, okay? And if I was to draw the top of this light bulb, and this is kind of the example I used on my other page, but just to kind of reiterate this point. If I take this light bulb, draw this, I'll get kind of the basic, and then if I start putting these cross contour lines in, this is helping me understand the dimension here, the space, the depth that I'm creating. That when I just have a shape like this, it's just super basic. When I have a basic shape like this, okay, it's just a shape. There's no depth here. But when I start to add in these lines, then I can start to see that depth and that space. So this is just an exercise. You're not necessarily going to see artists that do this in their work and, oh, here's my polished cross contour banana. You're not necessarily going to see that. It's more of an exercise. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Good, but that's a great question, and I'm so glad that you asked that, because otherwise you're like, is she just decorating that? What's she doing? And that's a really good question. You know, and then it's like when I start to look over here and start to see these curves, the lines are changing. So then I too will change my lines. So this is just helping me understand the banana better, as weird as that sounds, and getting to know, okay, well, what does it do now? Well, it goes kind of down this way. Or you're like, oh, well, that's not right. Maybe I need to erase this and figure out the actual direction of the plane. So all of this to say is going to improve your drawing skills, your observational skills, helping you draw more realistically. It's just kind of skills to use, if that makes sense, things to practice. The only time I really use contour, like I said, in a final piece is if I do like some little doodles of objects on top of like a watercolor background or something, or if I'm making like a card for someone. But usually I'll start with a contour and I add some type of shading or color or something to it, instead of doing these types of lines to show depth. But practicing with these lines can help you become a better shader, because what that would translate to is like this area of the banana, I don't want to shade it like this. Okay, I want to shade it going with the direction of the lines, because that's the way the plane of the banana is going. Okay, so that's true with any type of object or surface. You want to shade in the direction that it's going. So drawing these lines, okay, and I can put some lines this way too. So what would this mean then? How would I shade that? Cross-hatching. So cross-hatching would be, I'll show you. So if I have something that's curving like this, I would curve my shading in the same way. So I go up like this, and then I go to the side like this. And then what you get in the middle, you're recreating those directions of that plane. So it's looking more realistic than if you were to, like I said, just shade the whole thing in this direction and not match that curve or that shape of that plane. And if you feel like, for some people, that's common sense and they understand planes, they see that way, it's just how they observe things. So if you feel like that's you, this type of thing might not really help you any. But if you feel like, I feel for me, sometimes cross contours are helpful, especially if I'm looking at a complex object that has many different depths or different areas. Think about like folded cloth or like a drapery study. There's so much happening, so sometimes breaking down the lines and directions is just a helpful tool, if nothing else. So we've got a little bit of time left, so I just want to leave you with a little fun thing to do. Just a fun thing, not stressful, because a lot of what I showed you today, you do freehand a little bit. So let's go ahead and just trace our hand. This is easy. We can all do this, right? This is just a fun little thing to try. So you can get a little bit of your wrist in here. We're not going to make hand turkeys. This is kind of a play on, you may have even seen these before. This is kind of a play on op art, optical illusions meets contour drawing, cross contour lines. So what you'll do is you'll start on the fingers and you're going to just do some curved lines like this. You can have them further apart, closer together, whatever you like the look of. And then you'll do that in all these fingers. I know we don't have a ton of time, so I just want to give you enough so you can kind of try this on your own too. I think it's just a fun kind of mindful way to play with lines and contours. Then what you'll do, I'll just show you between these two. You'll actually repeat this process on all of these. I actually don't like what I did with this one. Erase that and fix it. It's better. So then what you'll do is you can start at the edge of your paper and you'll draw a line and then you're just going to connect all these lines together. And then you'll repeat that by doing the rest of these. Almost looks like you're kind of creating like these little webs between your fingers. Then, like when you get down here, you can kind of decide what you want to do. Like you could have some lines that kind of go across. They could go like across the whole thing, like this. You can do the same thing on your thumb. But again, your whole point is just to connect all these lines together. And then when you're finished, you get this cool and kind of impression of your hand. This is a fun thing. You can do it with kids. You can do it, I mean, anyone. You can, like I said, sort of play around with what you want these little transitions to look like. There's no right or wrong way, as long as the lines are connecting. Oops, went to the wrong one. It does get a little confusing after a while. What's that? This goes up. Then if you want, something you can do too is you can grab some colors, or you can even keep it black and white. But then what you can do is you can add some color and do like an every other, or do like a little pattern. But then when you fill your whole page, you get this cool kind of wave effect over your hand. And it's almost, I call it op art or optical illusion, because your eyes kind of play with you as you start to see some of like the depth and stuff that you can start to create. And you can even play and do like a more rounded kind of line too, if you want to see even more kind of depth or more that it's popping up. So you can play and experiment with that too. You can also, I will add, do cross contours on like fingers, where you add another component, just like you would like the sphere. So you can start to see like all the depth there too. So that's just, you know, an extension, something you can do, but you don't have to. But just kind of a fun thing to play around with. You don't have the stress of having to freehand draw your hand, but you get to kind of play around with the lines. You know, it's just a fun kind of little thing to do. But that's all I have for today. So I'm going to stop this so I can see. And if you want to turn your mics on, I would love to see. Oh, your banana looks awesome, Susan. I love it. Oh, lovely. That's great. Kathleen, you did a beautiful job. Wow. Lee, that looks wonderful.
I like the hand better than the banana.
You like the hand better? That's why I want to show you the hand too, because it's a very simplistic thing, but it's a great way to practice. And you could also do the same thing with other objects. You could trace anything and do those lines on them.
Okay.
Not just the hand, anything. You could even print like a traceable shape and manipulate that too. That would be a fun extension.
Can you see this?
Carol, you know what happens is it gets it reads it as your background
Oh,
when you hold it up.
it gets rid of my background?
Well, your paper, your sketch paper takes part of your background, so it looks like it's blue.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, it's pretty, but I can't see what you actually.
So what should I do for you to see it?
You want to turn off your virtual background.
No.
No. Well, you can do, if you want, if you have a capability to ever take a picture and send it to an email of like your sketches and things you do. I love to see your work, and then I can give you specific feedback too, like pointers, tips, or, you know, then I can point out things you're doing really well in addition to that, because we all have those strengths, you know. So anytime, this goes for anyone in the club, if you ever want me to, and this goes for things you make outside of our classes, if you ever want feedback or tips or tricks or anything on what you do, feel free to snap me a picture, email it. If you need help on how to do that, I can help with that too.
Can I show you something?
Thank you.
Please.
I usually work in fabric and thread, but I love drawing, and I've learned so much today. But I gave my quilting group, my crazy quilting group, a challenge to make a fruit, dimensional, 3-dimensional. So I'll show you my banana.
That is so cool.
There's even, let's see, this is very hard to, there's even a spider and his web on the end, but I don't think you can see it.
I do.
There it is. But it's all different fabrics.
Oh, that's neat.
Cheryl, that
You
is
know, from
so
far away.
cool.
So when you did the banana today, I said, oh, what fun. I loved it.
Well, and
Very
honestly,
creative.
for you or for anyone else that has like another field or creative area that they work in, I think drawing translates so much to that. Because if you're thinking, okay, I want to make another 3-dimensional thing, you could do some cross contour lines. And
That's what I was going to say. Now I would do it differently.
yeah,
I would do it like you taught us.
yeah, that's really, that's a cool connection.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to share or show or comment?
Well, this turned out pretty well. It's my no lift contour hand.
Ooh, look at that.
Wow.
It's a fist, but it's interesting.
Yeah.
There's a lot of expression there.
Yes.
That's nice.
That's really cool.
I can't wait to fill in the hand with
Yay.
all the colors.
So glad. Well, yeah, if anyone completes theirs too, feel free to send me that. I'd love to see them.
Okay.
So my question, oh yes, please go ahead, Kathleen. Oop, I think you need to unmute, Kathleen.
Could you show your hand again? How did you connect the lines from the pointer finger to the thumb? Or did you?
Oh, I didn't do that yet. But how I would do it is they would be at a very drastic angle. They're gonna go way down.
Oh.
But you could also, kind of like Susan did, you could play around with a different shape or do like a fist and do cross contours on something like that too. Because every time you do something like that, it challenges your brain to think, how would I do that? It's the problem solving component. But yeah, you would have a pretty, like this would come, I did this wrong, to be honest with you. I did this really fast, but this would actually go down here and I would connect these to this.
Oh,
That makes
Okay.
sense.
yeah.
And
That's
it
why
would
mine was
lots of that. It would be at an angle. I was just kind of honestly going on. Sometimes when I demo, it's such a different process when I demo something versus
Oh, yeah.
sitting down and making art that I'm like all over the place sometimes, and I'll just like laugh at my demo pages after the fact.
I see.
But yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, you just have lots of fun angles then, which when you color it in can be really fun because then you see all the fun shapes that it creates.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other thoughts, comments? And one thing I have leaving, would more contour drawing classes be helpful?
Yes,
More practice, kind
I
of
think so.
ideas?
yes, yes.
I need a lot of practice. So
More
yeah,
practice.
this is great. Very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm so
I-
glad. Well, I like challenge all of you to like try one more hand or a couple more times this week. Give it a go doing the blind contour and just kind of compare them and see how you feel.